Darth Vader was extremely powerful, far more powerful than anyone expected, even his own master, Darth Sidious. Following Vader's duel with Obi-Wan Kenobi, he was severely crippled, having his entire body severely burned and losing all 3 of his remaining limbs. Vader was so badly injured, Sidious, upon finding him, even contemplated if he would be worth saving in the first place, and even briefly entertained the thought of leaving him to die on the volcanic planet's shore. Following this, Vader was encased in a suit of armor that he required simply to breathe correctly. His master Sidious even placed several intentional hindrances into the suit to keep Vader limited in his abilities. However, after all of this, Vader literally pulled himself from the ashes and returned a fierce and powerful Lord of the Sith and commander of the dark side. But the question still remains, how did Vader overcome these purposefully planted weaknesses, and why were they there to begin with? The dream of the Chosen One had been a long-told prophecy, not only among the Jedi, but Sith as well. Towards the latter half of his life, Sidious's own master mused at the idea of a being born purely out of the Force with incredible power. For years, Palpatine was showered with the idea of such a being, growing to the point where he despised his master's constant obsession over it. However, one day, a boy arrived to Coruscant who was told to be this Chosen One. Sidious at first was shocked, but then saw a golden opportunity to corrupt the boy and use his great power to destroy the Jedi and bring the Sith back to prominence. When Sidious had finally enacted his master plan to destroy the Jedi and had finally turned this once Chosen One to the dark side, he was overjoyed. All had gone his way, and his new apprentice, Lord Vader, would become more powerful than he could ever imagine. But then tragedy reached Sidious. Reaching out through the Force, he discovered that his apprentice had been gravely injured and was near death. After finding Vader defeated and crippled, Sidious was furious, angered by the destroyed prospects of this once mighty Sith. Because of this failure, Sidious wished to punish Vader, placing him in a suit that was just as much a torture device as it was armor. Sidious desired Vader to be stuck in a place of never-ending pain and torment, trapped by his actions and his body itself. Sidious personally ordered the suit to be especially weak to Force lightning, that if he ever desired, he could end Vader right then and there with his skill with the ability. Sidious never intended for Vader to remain his apprentice for much longer. How could he? He was so much less than before. Vader's suit was tight and agonizing. It was extremely uncomfortable and constantly made sleep impossible for the Sith. The suit was also hard to maneuver and extremely heavy. However, this constant state of torment began to fuel Vader and his power. The dark side flourishes in a state of agony and anger, and thus, Vader found power in his suffering. Despite his hindrances, Vader successfully destroyed the remaining Jedi, driving the rest into hiding. While Vader had lost the ability to perform some Force feats, he became more gifted with others. Many of his flaws became his greatest assets, using his slow, heavy suit to his advantage by utilizing the increased strength that came with it. Vader began endlessly drilling with his suit and fully grasping how to master it. He also took full advantage of the limited training sessions with Sidious, devouring as much knowledge as he could. In moments where he was required to move swiftly, he used the Force to maneuver his suit in ways his body could not. Palpatine eventually took note of his student's power, placing various obstacles in his way to truly test if he was as gifted as he seemed. Despite how difficult or horrible the task, time after time Vader returned triumphant, his command over the dark side and the lightsaber more magnificent and terrifying than ever thought possible. Witnessing this, a feeling creeped over Palpatine he had not felt in a long while. That of fear. While Vader was partially crippled, he had now become far more dangerous than imaginable following his injuries. Seeing this, Palpatine began to further his search for an apprentice that could possibly rule the galaxy after his death. Time after time, apprentices came and fell, sometimes by the difficulty of a mission given to them by Palpatine, and some by the hand of Vader himself. Watching this, Palpatine began to wonder if Vader was the one to truly be able to overthrow him and take his place as Lord of the Sith. Although at first, Palpatine wished to keep Vader somewhat restrained in his suit in fear of him and his potential to overthrow him, it became clear that Vader was the best remaining option for a successor. Because of this, Palpatine ordered the production of a new suit for Vader, one without the hindrances and one that would allow Vader to reach his potential following his injuries. But the process proved to be a dangerous one. Despite a new suit being successfully produced, in order for Vader to be placed in it, he had to be completely removed from all his cybernetics, including his life support system. If the transfer was to be successful, Vader needed to be completely as he was, with no safeguards in place to assure he survived. Although considering it for a great while, Vader ultimately chose not to undergo the procedure. Sidious himself became enraged, frustrated that Vader would likely never be able to overthrow him, and that it was a result of his own inner anger and hatred. It was during this time the boy Luke Skywalker was discovered by Sidious, and the opportunity to claim an apprentice more powerful than Vader arose. Because of this, it became Palpatine's primary plan to turn the young Skywalker to the dark side, as he had his father decades earlier, and finally claim an apprentice worthy and able to succeed him. Of all the monsters I have created, I still regard Darth Vader as something of a minor masterpiece. No, he was not an entirely alchemical creation, but he was my monster nonetheless. There was much pleasure in transforming Anakin Skywalker from a bright-eyed, tousle-headed youth into the greatest Jedi killer of all time. Yes, he ultimately turned against his master, as some monsters sometimes do. But that was my fault, not his. Given the opportunity to create Vader again, I would. And with zeal. So that is why Palpatine chose to make Vader weak or weaker than he could have been, and what resulted because of it. So how do you feel about this? And what do you think of Vader and Palpatine and the way they both handled Vader being severely injured on Mustafar? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't yet, maybe consider subscribing.